Happy New Year, and welcome to another exciting episode of AEW Dynamite Recap and Review. As always, I am your hostess with the mostest Divine Intervention, joined as always by All Elite Joker.
Hello, everybody.
Again, Happy New Year to everyone. Obviously, we were on a brief hiatus for the holidays, but as we go into 2023, AEW as a whole has kind of done a soft revamp over the past couple of episodes between last week and this week. They've changed the colors of the logo, so it's no longer competing for black and gold supremacy. Now we have shifted to, ironically enough, more of like a red, white, and blue situation. Purple. There's more colors. There's more colors involved.
Yeah.
But overall, trying to lean heavier into like the sports entertainment feel, the filler music. Yeah, the filler music between matches and stuff as they're announcing things is definitely more sports versus like wrestling. So I don't know. Maybe in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. As far as some of the subtle changes, supposed to be doing some pretty significant revamps to Rampage as well, trying to make that TV time more viable. So we'll have to see the changes as they come. I know we didn't get a chance to talk last week, but bringing everybody up to speed. First segment of the evening was Jon Moxley with Hangman Page, finally. Several weeks of beatdowns between the two of these gentlemen based off a match a couple weeks ago where Mox laid Hangman out, basically. No fault of anybody in particular, just the business, the way it works. And they kind of rolled that into a storyline. So overall, the match was really good. Definitely like the battle of the lariats to me. Like both of them were trying to take each other's heads off multiple times throughout this match.
Yeah, it was a really good match. 2 months in the making, essentially, since Moxley laid out Hangman and put him on the shelf, essentially. And yeah, I mean, you got two of the hardest hitting guys, this side of the Pacific, duking it out, having just as JR used to put it, slobber knocker.
Mm-hmm.
And that last buckshot just disgusting. There was a couple of times where I thought one of them had knocked the other out like cold, just because of how hard they were hitting each other. But excellent match, great storytelling as always by those two gentlemen, and glad to see Hangman hasn't missed a step. We know what he's capable of. Mm-hmm.
Good for him to get the win coming back for sure. Mox has given his blood, which, speaking of blood, this man bleeds every match. It doesn't matter what.
It's not a Moxley match if there's no blood. Okay.
I mean, yeah, when he came away from the chops or whatever and he was starting to bleed from his forehead, I was just like, well, there it is. There it is. Excuse me, people, I have an ear itch. My apologies.
Hey man, it's all good. And they alluded to maybe some type of injury for Moxley coming out of this, so we might be seeing a bit of a hiatus for Mr. Moxley going into the new year, which is a much deserved hiatus if that is the case. Yeah, because considering he was supposed to be off after All Out, but pending circumstances. So we yes.
Elvis, good to see you, friend. Thank you so much for always joining us. You were robbed.
An unwavering support. Thank
you so much. Dang, we didn't win this year? Just kidding. I watched the show. I know we didn't win this year. Don't worry. We got them for 2023. Besides, last I checked, I'm still the champion. No other person was crowned in my eyes. So unless somebody tells me otherwise, I'm still your reigning defending UPR champion.
Always will be, baby.
Oh, I appreciate that. Charmaine, thank you so much for joining us as well. Always nice to see you regulars. Always nice to see everybody in the crowd. Yeah, Moxley Hangman is not over. I definitely think that they're leading to maybe even a part 3 between these two.
Oh, you have to.
People couldn't get enough when the weeks leading up to it, Hangman's coming out just to get his hands on Moxley, and so strike while the iron's hot. Why not? And then it would be the rubber match because obviously they're both 1-1, so gotta reign supreme. See who's really the baddest SOB on the block. Before we get into anything in particular, not sure who's going to join us, and I will say this a couple of times throughout the show. We will discuss general wrestling related items at the end of the show. We are not going to interject them throughout. We will talk about it one time and one time only. If you want more details than that, there are other shows on the UP. Look at like, share, subscribe. Look, you can go find them. It was literally one about that very topic that you probably want to talk about, done just a couple hours ago. So get on YouTube, check it out. You will hear our opinion at the very end. Moving on. Right. Next we had Adam Cole Baby's return. Kind of a swerve, if we're being honest. Tony came out to the ring and said he was not super happy with who he was going to be introducing next, which of course, I thought it, Joker thought it. MJF's music was going to hit, and here comes Adam Cole Baby strutting his stuff down to the ring.
With his jazz hands.
Looking good, very tan. I will say that that's going to be a theme for this episode. Everybody was very tan. I don't know where everybody went for the holidays. Obviously, someplace with some sun.
Beach episode.
Everybody, you know what? Beach episode. Basically, Cole says there's good news, bad news. The good news is that he has a greater appreciation for life. The bad news really is for everybody else in the locker room because Adam Cole is now cleared. He is ready to wrestle. And he says that he is ready to usher in a new era of Adam Cole. And I believe it. I mean, if we're thinking about where he was when he was injured, everybody that he was running with at the time has moved on to other things, whether that be due to injury, leaving the promotion. Kenny has obviously come back at this point, and we knew the Bucks were eventually going to peel away from Adam Cole to, rejoin Kenny. Things turned out very differently than I'm sure anybody imagined for the rest of this year, but roll with the punches. Adam Cole versus MJF. I think it's eventually going to happen. I think it is eventually going to happen. We haven't really talked about who we think could be the next person to take the belt from MJF, if we're being honest.
Adam Cole would be a very good option, towards the end of MJF's, reign.
Yeah.
But, you've also got people like Takeshita out there who I think could...
Takeshita would make a great pay-per-view opponent, one where you're like, yeah, okay, it's going to be a great match, but I know Takeshita will eventually be a champion of some sort. I personally think that they're building Ricky up over the next 6, 8, 12 months. We'll talk more about his particular segment a little later in the show, but we have been seeing him very consistently, especially since he and Hobbs have kind of broken apart and are doing their own separate things. So that's my pick. I'm biased because love me some Ricky Starks. But I definitely could see him or Adam Cole as being some pretty top contenders based on who's available.
Yeah, Ricky is... I can't wait till we get to his segment later, but Ricky is at the top of my list, especially since he was the first person that Max fought after getting his title.
Right.
It'd be perfect for, full circle.
Full circle. Yeah, I agree.
Come back around and you have Ricky win his first big belt, his first big belt, because not going to deny that man made the FTW championship relevant again. He brought it to a new generation of fans, and I'm forever grateful for that. and also really forged who he was in the company with that belt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love for it to be him, to take it off of Max once we eventually get to that point.
I definitely agree. Victor, thank you so much for joining us as well. Definitely a party now. I think the whole gang's here, actually.
Indeed.
As the rest of you continue to file in, thank you so much for joining us. AEW's Recap and Review. Like, share, subscribe. All of that good social media stuff. Big Bill and Lee Moriarty of the Firm versus Junglehook. All right. The Firm is interesting. I'm glad to see Lee Moriarty doing his thing. I feel like the more exposure he gets, I hope he gets the Wheeler Yuta treatment, because Lee Moriarty in the ring is also very talented. And I don't know what rub or what special magic, they need to sprinkle on top of him. But I mean, whatever they did with Wheeler Yuta, copy paste, because I mean, the guy is really good. Junglehook. It's good filler, I mean, I know this is, they even said it was for one night only. Like, do not get excited about this, people. This is not long term. They are just meeting up to, as a means to an end, but they look good together, honestly. Two young lads, good looking guys. Big, beefy. Well, they're not really beefy. They're on the littler side. Junglehook.
Hey man, I was there for one thing and one thing only, and it happened, so I'm happy. And that is Hook doing something to the giant that is Big Bill. And when they finally squared up and he just... Also, aside, I think the thing that made me even happier than him doing the move, which was the T-bone, which is, under over suplex, was the proud dad pop from Taz that came from this. Just hearing him coaching him and screaming into the mic, like it was everything. But that kid, I need to see him in Takeshita.
Oh yeah.
When he's got a little bit more seasoning, him and Takeshita is going to be a really good match. And
I agree.
I'm so happy that Takeshita... Well, we'll get to him later as well.
Yes, we will get to him.
Getting ahead of myself.
My boy.
Yes.
Jack Perry, Jungle Boy Jack Perry, with the snare trap for the win. Pretty much went the way you would expect. Obviously Jungle Hook's going to walk away with the win here, but everybody looked good. It was a nice little match. Big Bill is just very big. Like that's all I got for Big Bill. He's very tall.
A big boy.
Yes. Next segment was very interesting. Normally I like everything that Danhausen's a part of. Like, he has very good comedic timing. He always has the good quips. I don't know how I felt about this segment, and I don't think that it had anything to do with the wrestlers. So they had a Golden Globe winner, Paul
Walter what?
Paul
Walter Hauser.
I'm sorry, because he said Danhausen. He called him Danhauser.
Anyway. Paul Walter Hausen. I mean, Walter Hauser. Because Danhausen. Well, Danhausen called him Walter Hausen, and he said, I'm Walter Hauser. Danhausen. Danhausen and Walter Hauser. Ha.
Yes, that. It was a backstage segment with Renee. Orange Cassidy was there. They asked about if the best friends were still best friends. They said yes, kind of begrudgingly, but I think the segment was so awkward, like some of the impact was lost, at least for me personally, because like by the end, Trent was having a really hard time keeping a straight face, just because it was overall just very awkward. We're supposed to get to see the Golden Globe on Rampage. Danhausen asked his usual "what's in the box" situation. This is an attempt to get Danhausen on TV more often. He talked about it on his blog. We don't keep up with everybody's blog every episode, but we do keep up with enough. And I think going into the new year, he had said, obviously coming away as the number one merch seller of the year, which I'm still floored by, that he should get more time on TV. And honestly, I agree. I think he kind of needs to do his own thing, though. Like the fact that he is shackled, and I want your opinion, Joker. This is me personally. I think that good, bad, or indifferent, like he should just kind of be a free roaming entity. Like if he's cool with the best friends, then that's fine. But the fact that he's like shackled to their side, I want to see him interact more with the House of Black. Like I know they're supposed to be so serious, but
And see, that's the thing. Like you gotta be able to find that balance because you want the House of Black to have their mysticism and spookiness. And the second you interject Danhausen into that, now there is an evil side of Danhausen because he's very nice and very evil. If he leaned into the more sadistic side of himself, he could, lean more over onto that side. I would also like to see him run off and do his own thing because I'm a huge fan of Danhausen and his work. I would like to see him just roam around, even if he's still doing what he's doing right now. I'd love to just see him doing his thing everywhere, almost kind of like how R-Truth does. When you never really know when or where he's gonna pop up, and sometimes there's no reason he should be there whatsoever. Like Danhausen's debut was a perfect case of that.
right.
Them pulling out the ladder and him being on top of the ladder like that. He had no business being there. And that's the whole, fun of Danhausen. Plus, I want to see him wrestle more. Man's a great wrestler. I wish people could see that because, it's almost got like when he's allowed to get going, he can get going.
And I think by protecting the character, you can let him get away with, just like Jungle Boy got away with losing for a while. Like it didn't hurt his character. That's what it was. Let Danhausen get in these situations where his mouth or his actions write checks he can't cash, and build up to that. Him eventually fighting back, like kind of how I feel they did with Orange Cassidy for a while too. So I don't know. I think because they have similar gimmicks, they've kind of been keeping them together. But I think it's time to shake things up and break them apart. Personally, I did not discuss this. I've cut out, discussing a lot of the stuff that goes on Rampage just because it's a show that we don't cover necessarily. If something important happens, we'll definitely keep you posted. But so there was a segment with the AEW champs, the Acclaimed, advertising that they will be having a very special segment on Rampage this week. So no Acclaimed every Wednesday this week. We did not see them outside of what we will eventually see on Friday. And maybe that was for the best, given what we'll talk about at the end of this episode. Because people said that Max might need a muzzle. But Joker, I know you're still very much an Acclaimed fan. How do you feel about new tag champs?
AEW stands for Acclaimed every Wednesday.
Well, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first.
The end.
The end. All right. Moving on. I'm going to break this next segment up into two parts because it's just how AEW rolls. So we were told next was Konosuke Takeshita versus Bryan Danielson, which, we will talk about eventually. But first, MJF decided that this was where he was going to show up and make his stand. He interrupts in true MJF fashion. First words out his mouth are "Konnichiwa, bud." That is my champion, everyone. I'm not proud of it, but here we are. The big thing I walked away with was, obviously we know Takeshita, he's a Japanese man, he speaks Japanese, but he spoke English. I was under the impression that English was obviously not a strong suit of his, so I was very proud that he spoke English on national television. So Takeshita-san. For those who don't know, I yelled at him in Japanese at a house show that we went to. Oh, I can't even call Terminus a house show. It was a pay-per-view. It was on Fight. It was legit. But during the match, if you hear somebody screaming in Japanese, it's your girl.
And he pointed at you.
Any point, I was acknowledged. Okay, Takeshita-san acknowledged me, and I am so thankful for that because he's so talented. And he's a permanent U.S. resident, apparently, or at least here for a while. So excited to see more of him. And shit, if this match is anything to go by, he's about to light this division up. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we move on, MJF not only tore into Takeshita, but he then proceeded to speak about the celebrity guests that we had at ringside. One of which is the good doctor, Dr. Ken. We love him. And I mean, MJF, what he said about him was pretty mild, just that he was old and that, his show got canceled, LOL. But Freddie Prinze Jr. was also in attendance, to which, oh my God, I can't even sit here and name everything that MJF said to this man. But the highlight was calling him a Scooby-Dooby douchebag. And I don't know, man.
Listen. First of all, the fact that the first thing that came out of his mouth was, speaking of shows that are probably about to be canceled. For those of you who don't know, Freddie Prinze Jr. was a writer at WWE, and there's a lot of crazy shenanigans going on over there. We pray for our wrestling brothers. Also, all questions and anything that pertaining to those types of things that are non-related to Dynamite will be answered at the end of the segment.
Yes.
But yes, that was hilarious. And then he brought up of course, the movie he was in the 90s. But then he brought up the fact that he said, the only thing that I remember you from is when you were a Scooby-Dooby douchebag. And I fell out because it was dumb and it was funny. And it seemed to pop Freddie, to be honest, which was even funnier.
Yeah, the look on his face was just like...
He looked so
Can he say that? Because he literally was like, what? That's hilarious.
That was wonderful. Max is always a gem, and yeah, good Lord. Shout out to Max.
Hilarious. Eventually Danielson did make his entrance, and MJF booked it. That man has some feet on him. Okay, he took off in a suit. Oh, right. I'm sorry. We didn't get a chance to talk about this. Okay, so what is happening is Danielson has challenged MJF, and MJF laid out his ground rules, kind of similar to what Charmaine's talking about here. MJF always has a set of rules that you got to follow to get the match with him. And so essentially, Danielson has to win matches for the next 6 weeks. Is that what it is?
Something like that, and then 6 or 7 weeks, and then he'll face him at Revolution if he can make it.
He'll be considered the number one contender, and then he will face MJF at Revolution. And if he is able to complete this, the counter offer from Danielson was that he got to pick the stipulation, in which case it will be a 1-hour Iron Man match. So, should Danielson become the number one contender, not only will he get a match, but he will get his special requested match. So it should be very interesting. And with that, we move into part 2 of this segment, which was the actual match between Takeshita and Danielson, which, oh my God, just slice me up a piece of Japan and wrap it in AEW wrapping paper, because that's what this was. Like, it was so good.
I love all the strong style and true Japanese wrestling that we get, and the blending of Japanese and Western wrestling that we get to see on AEW television pretty regularly at this point. But just you can see that Konosuke got his reps in with, Japanese pros, if you're familiar with the style, because the hard hitting technical nature, because Japanese pro wrestling is much less about the spectacle of pro wrestling and more about the actual wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the wrestling, the striking, all of that's what shines in Japanese pro wrestling. And so watching Takeshita go against somebody like Danielson, who is, arguably the greatest wrestler in the world,
Mm-hmm.
from a mat sense and just all around, that Michidoku driver into flawlessly into a deadlift German suplex with a Northern Lights pin was just a sight to behold. There's so many moments in this match where I can't even justify. Go watch it. Just go watch
Yeah.
that match. If there's that would be my match of the night to watch. From this week episode. If you only have time for one match, please watch this match, because this match was just a clinic on professional wrestling, and it was absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
I couldn't even begin to sit here and explain all of the different moves and things that happened in this match and just how it was a technical masterpiece. But good God, it was. Danielson won because he beat the living snot out the man, but Takeshita made him bleed from chops.
Yep. Got him right in the titty.
A lot of times.
Yeah, man. I mean,
it cracked through the arena. It was so bad.
yeah. There was one pretty scary spot that they tried to do a maneuver off of the apron onto the barricade or against the barricade, off to the side. And Danielson landed pretty awkwardly on his leg. And he was kind of favoring it for the majority of the match. But he was able to kick with it and everything like that. So I'd imagine he's going to get it looked at, but he seemed to be able to walk on his own 2 feet to get out of there. So hoping he is okay in time for next week, where he faces Bandito, which is going to be great because, I mean,
Bandito!
Oh my God, Bandito is so talented.
Huge Bandito fan. Need to get
Very
me a Bandito
good.
mask.
And I love that Danielson's getting the opportunity to, flex his muscles and face different opponents, and going straight from Japanese strong style to a true luchador like Bandito the very next week. So I hope that in his decision to change things up, that he is truly getting an opportunity to do the matches that he's been wanting to do.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that when he left WWE and in his first, couple of interviews, people asked him, why did you leave? He left on really good terms. And it was because he wanted to wrestle young talent and different talent. And AEW has a working relationship with so many different other promotions that list of people is far larger than I'm sure. I mean, he's got plenty of time to go through all these people, and there's more that are just going to keep popping up.
Right. Even more if what we're discussing at the end of the episode is to be believed. Oh my God. Stick around, people. I mean, I know that there's a completely other video on our YouTube channel about this topic, but you get the AEW perspective here. Everybody's going to talk about, the other team from the other perspective. Come sit with us. Come sit with the cool kids. Not wrapping up, but moving on to the next segment here. Women's match, Toni Storm and Saraya versus Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and our women's champion, Jamie Hayter. Gonna circle back to last week a little bit to bring you guys up to speed. There was an interview to name Saraya's partner. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation around who was going to be in this partner spot going into today's episode. A lot of people leaned very heavily into Mercedes making an appearance, Naomi perhaps. A lot of names floating around with a mystery partner. So they did end up naming somebody as her partner, which I think was the smartest thing to do, even though people were a little disappointed. But Toni Storm was named during an interview with Renee, where Saraya is sitting with Sheeta and Toni Storm, and eventually she was like, "Oh, Tony, I think you're the best wrestler," and totally like disregards Sheeta. And I don't know. I think she felt a little slighted by that. Definitely by her facial expression from last week, could tell that she was like, "What the fuck?" um, and I mean, you can't go wrong. Both of them were previous women's champions, so I mean, argument could be made for either one. But going into this match, Saraya did pick Toni Storm. Um, Interestingly enough, DMD and Jamie Hayter both had matching gear. And actually, when I sit and think about Saraya and Tony's looks, they also kind of matched. And when they first came out, I was like, Joker, do you think they're building a women's tag division? And I feel like we're seeing more women pairs. Sky Blue has been spending a lot of time with Kiera Hogan, who is also blue. So, I think at the end of the day, they are Anna Jay and Ty Mello have always been a tag team or a pair. So I think as more people start coming up, I think we might see some women's tag belts.
Agreed.
Sheeta did make an appearance. She came out in the middle of the match, but she was dressed in all red, which happened to match Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Jamie Hayter, because the other peeps were in black and silver and stuff. The match itself was pretty good. I felt like halfway through it kind of lost some steam a little bit. But where it picked back up, Sheeta as Toni Storm and Hayter are laid out prone in the ring. Sheeta slides her kendo stick between the two of them laid out. Britt decides to get up and use it, knocks Toni Storm out. Hayter hits her with the Haterade, and that's how she gets the win. Sheeta, when they pan the camera back to her, looks mortified. So this was not a blatant betrayal outright. But the subtle hint, well, and that's what I'm saying. The subtle hinting here, she's dressed in red, whereas like the team she's supposed to be coming out to support, she doesn't match them in any way. I've heard, and I think we've also kind of internally discussed, insiders, homegrown talents versus outsiders. So like, Sheeta would eventually want to align herself with people like Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, who helped shape and, grow this division from scratch, versus a Toni Storm or a Saraya who, while very talented, are coming in claiming that this is their house. This is Saraya's second match. Ma'am, how is this your house?
When AEW's women's division is quite literally the house that Britt Baker, DMD, built. Like that woman, blood, sweat, tears, and her dental office. Because she did have a match in her dental office.
Yep.
This is Britt's house. And, it was interesting, a lot of speculation for Mercedes. And that's not to say that she's not still going to make an appearance. A lot of people have, made mention, well, I'm pretty sure New Japan isn't going to spend all the money that they spent on her to have her do her debut match not in front of their audience when she is signed to New Japan. It's not to say we won't see her in some type of backstage segment or something before that, but I definitely feel like it's probably going to be, if we do see her in AEW, it wouldn't be until after her first match, which I think is in the beginning of February.
Yes.
I think it's February 11th, right?
18th. I want to say.
I'll double check.
Yes, 18th is that Saturday.
Okay.
Oh, but the 11th is the Saturday before that. It could be either or, people. My vote's on the 18th. Joker's going to look into it. I agree. And with Revolution being, March 5th? She would have plenty of time to have her match, heal up for a week or two, and get ready to um, make a debut. Plus, for the money I'm sure they would be spending on her, that is somebody that you would want to debut at a pay-per-view versus like, a TV episode. So, unless it's a special one like an anniversary or something like that. So, we shall see. We definitely shall see. But they're supposed to be facing each other not at the next Wrestle Kingdom show because that's the 21st, which is next Saturday. They specifically were talking about it being the California show. While Joker is looking into it, let's discuss briefly about the Jericho Appreciation Society.
You.
Chris Jericho came out. He's been on a losing streak lately, losing to some pretty interesting people. Action Andretti. I don't know if we got an opportunity to discuss it. I think we had an episode that week, but it's hard to remember people. If we did not, just to bring everybody up to speed, Action Andretti was a brand newcomer. He made his debut against Chris Jericho, and he then proceeded to pin him and beat him clean. So the Jericho Appreciation Society comes out. They're essentially saying that they are the Saints of Los Angeles and, all sorts of sports entertainment type stuff. Ricky Starks makes an entrance flanked by Action Andretti. So I guess they're kind of hanging out with each other for right now. I'm going to be honest. This promo battle was not my favorite. A lot of low-hanging fruit kind of jabs, in my personal opinion, like, talking about how Sammy can't control his woman and, she was between Action style. Like, come on now. We can talk about some different stuff. But if you're looking for cheap heat, it is what it is. Ricky looked great in his white vest tuxedo pant situation. And yeah, he called out Jake Hager because that's the person who put him through a table last week. So it makes sense.
He likes his hat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
It's on his hat.
Yes, he is now embroidered. I like this hat on the hat. So do with that what you will.
He likes the hat.
He did say, though, that he has worn many hats, and one of them, of course, being undefeated in MMA. I do like the fact that that's not all he says. He can actually speak. It's in short sentences, very, very few and far between. But
it's funny on BTE, though.
Well, BTE in general is just funny. So yeah, next week, Ricky Starks versus Jake I Like This Hat Hager. And I don't know, man. He's probably gonna go through another table, for being honest.
But he's gonna win.
Yeah. I'm sad that everything the Jericho Appreciation Society touches, like, there's not been anything that they've done where it's like, oh man, I can't wait to see what they do next. Everybody's just like, man, I can't wait for this, jazz feud to be over.
And the sad part is, it's only with feuds, right? Because like, if we had just left it at Action Andretti Action Andretti beat Chris Jericho, then Ricky Starks beat Chris Jericho, and then they just went on about their merry little business. That would have done far more than anything that the feud's going to do. Okay, Action Andretti maybe a little bit because he's this is a good he's fresh, but like Ricky doesn't need anything. But on the flip side of that, the one thing that the JS does do is it gives somebody a consistent and solid feud for a good couple of months while you're trying to either build them up like a Ricky Starks, because this can run at least till Revolution.
Yeah.
And then you have him put in another program until Double or Nothing, and so on and so forth. But he's been dealing with them since Christmas. essentially,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, you know, as long as Ricky shines, I don't really mind.
Yeah. Um. So we'll probably be doing this for the next couple of weeks. He'll, I'm sure it'll be Daniel Garcia maybe after that. After Ricky beats Hager, Garcia jumps in and beats him up after the match, and then they have a match next weekend. I, promo match until we get to Revolution, and then
Probably a tag team match at some point with Andretti.
yeah, AEW. You can find us in Atlanta. You can send our checks PO
Actually,
Box.
next match, it's gonna be after the Hager Starks match. It's gonna be Sammy and Garcia versus Andretti and
Ricky.
it's Ricky. At least that's where it looks like it's going.
Yep. All right, people. Main event time. I don't have a lot of notes on this, so we're gonna wing this because I could not take my eyes off this match. The Elite versus Death Triangle, their final bout of the best of 7. Both are at 3-on-3, so truly was to determine who would get the trios titles. I mean, it was anybody's ball game. My only notes are trios title match, what the fuck, and new. So for anybody, the Elite won. Like, let's just start there. So there's no spoilers. The Elite walked away with the win.
All right. We had, in no particular order, because I'm just gonna say them as I can think of them. But there was, whatever I say, there's probably double or triple that actually happened. At least triple. We had Matt Jackson do a high crossbody off the top rope onto the floor, onto Pac through a table.
Mm-hmm.
We had Kenny Omega do a tope con hilo over the top ropes onto a table with nobody there. It was supposed to be Pac, but he moved. Pac hit Matt Jackson with a package pile driver onto a ladder that was on another ladder that was also on the other end of the ropes. Kenny hit Ray Phoenix with a one-winged angel off of said ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow not breaking his ass. There was a pile driver in there. There was lots of stuff. Lots of ladders. Lots of ladders. Somebody who got brain busted on the floor. Somebody got brain busted on the floor. Kenny? It was a rough. Was it Kenny? It was Kenny. Kenny did get brain busted on the floor. He had a rough night, that guy, Kenny. But yeah, Kenny was eventually the one that climbed up the ladder after he murdered Ray Phoenix with a one-winged angel off of a ladder. Cannot stress how much that must have hurt. Anyway, but yeah, Kenny barely, because he was clutching his ribs for about the better half of that match after his tope with nobody home through the table.
Right.
Yeah, he pulls one championship down, which is all you need to win the match, and ding, 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 and new.
Yep.
Great match. Balls to the walls as usual. Oh, yeah, the series as a whole was outstanding, but I mean, it's what you come to expect from the Lucha Brothers, and shouts out to both of these teams. Absolutely just taking years off of all of their bodies.
Yeah.
For this best of 7 series. First best of 7, hopefully not the last of AEW. Quite the undertaking, I would say. But I feel like it was, while we definitely just watched 7 times of the same exact match. Well, 8 really. Oh, no. The kind of the first one.
Yeah, the first one was the first, yeah.
So, 7 matches of the same group, but it hasn't felt stale. It didn't feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to watch this match again.
Yes.
Because there was an end goal. Like, it's, hey, there's 7 and then that's it. There's no, we're doing this since you guys can't seem to keep your hands off of each other. We're going to do it. And there's got to be a winner at the end of this.
Right. Well, and what I thought was interesting too was one, the fact that it didn't have to go to 7. They had a schedule planned out that, okay, if we need, we'll take it all the way to this. But if somebody's able to knock it out in, 4 or 5 matches, it would have ended right there. And I think that the introduction of stipulation matches in the last handful was so important. Because just like you said, it's one thing to see it once. It's one thing to see it twice or even 3 times. But it would get to a point where it's like, oh my God. Like, yes, there's an end goal, but it's the same thing over and over again. Yeah, so, exactly. By taking away the fact that the hammer, which has been a constant in all 7 matches.
Got used in this match too.
Yep, got used in this match too. So, consistency. But by taking it away that, oh, well, now it's on the table. You can use it and it's not a big deal. I feel like it kind of upped the ante to take it to that next level.
Because, we had the first 3 were regular matches, and then we started getting stepped up for the last 4, which were all amazing in their own right. But great to see those guys win. Hopefully everybody gets a nice break on both sides because they have been going to war.
Yeah, I think they said Kenny was off a 17-hour jet lag from Japan.
Yep, so, and we know what that feels like, and it
ain't cute, people.
It is not.
It is not cute. You could see the suitcases under his eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for all you dedicated dudes and dudettes, it's the end of the episode. So now we will just say our piece on what is going on with WWE. And then we will leave you to fight it out in the comments. Personally, I am concerned for the company and for the industry as a whole. For those who do not know, not only has Vince McMahon re-entered the conversation and is now confirmed as the executive chair of the board.
Yes.
It is alleged that he has made his return so that he can facilitate the sale of WWE, which is not new news. People have been talking about a potential sale for years at this point, if you take the pandemic into consideration. But the sale, at least as of today, it was rumored that they were potentially being sold to Saudi Arabia and their public investment fund, similar to the golf
Endeavor.
league. Yeah, Endeavor, that they put and sank money into. So nothing has been confirmed. This is not us saying anything concrete. We're just letting you know what we know in case you don't know. So, Joker, I will let you say your 2 cents because I've been talking for a minute, but I'm concerned, and I think a lot of other people are too.
I'm concerned for the company and the public perception and everything else. What this could mean, especially since the investigation is still ongoing with Vince. And the last thing that for me is the biggest thing is just I feel so bad for the talent because, WWE's morale had been higher than it has been in years. Once Vince had been ejected. And then to see that Stephanie resigned last night and, what that could potentially mean. And I know they've been saying till they're purple that, Vince isn't going to touch creative. They also said Vince wasn't going to come back in.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be back on the board, And I don't know if any of us truly ever really thought that he was like fully gone in the first place, but I am concerned to see what this could mean and what negative, impact this could have on the industry, because I feel like wrestling is definitely on an upswing. We're getting a lot more people coming back. I would very much like to interview one of our friends who has recently come back to wrestling. And I don't want this to once again put wrestling in a negative light, because we've been working really hard to get out of that. That's it for me.
All right, people, that's it. That's the whole meat and potatoes of it. Just a lot of concern without there being any real concrete news to report. We just could sit here and speculate for hours on what could and couldn't be. But I agree with Joker that, I think as time progressed and we got further and further away from when Vince left, it was like everybody kind of started to breathe a little easier and relax, because it was like, the first couple of weeks, it was like, nobody believes it. Of course, he's coming back. This is all a ruse. And as months started passing and things started slowly changing and getting a little bit better, it was like, okay, maybe this is real. I think a lot of people either have speculated or just assumed amongst themselves that any sale to Saudi Arabia or anybody else would be positioned to where Vince could come back as the head of creative. And so I don't know. There's a lot of question marks around the WWE right now. I know that with people assuming or taking it at face value that, the Vince era was over, there was a lot of talk of, I bet somebody like Andrade or, somebody who did, maybe isn't, I won't say Brian Cage. He isn't being utilized to the best of his ability, but he didn't come from WWE. But the point I'm trying to make is like, the grass is always greener on the other side. So it's like, oh, well, now that Trips is in charge, of course he's going to go back. And it's like, you never really know what's going on behind the scenes. At the end of the day, he was let go from that company, and the man that let him go is now back in charge. So,
Regal.
I know Regal, like there's so many people involved where I'm just like, man, this affects so much more than the stockholders' pocketbooks at the end of the day. Like this is people's livelihoods. And there are a lot of people who are uncertain about, whether they're going to have a job tomorrow or not. So, just thinking and best wishes to not only the people within WWE, not just the superstars that you see, but a lot of superstars who don't, the people working the cameras, the people who are in the truck, the people who do the makeup, like they're all part of the production as well. And they all have an opinion about who they report to at the end of the day. So, whatever shakes out, I just hope the best for people in general, because, the industry is at a point right now where there is so much to go around. Fans are coming back in droves, more alternative products are being put up as mainstream
Options.
every year. Ring of Honor is now about to get their own show and potentially tour and do stuff. Impact has always been really solid, and more people have been seeking that out as an alternative since it's so easily accessible. Like, it doesn't have to just be this one thing anymore. And I hope that they recognize that and get with the times, but they haven't for a very long time. So who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
All right, peeps. That was it. We back in this bitch. So saddle up. As always, I've been Divine Intervention. He's All Elite Joker. And I guess we'll catch you next week.
Peace, peeps.